The trap you set for me was never my downfall. It was your confession. My dear chosen ones, let me speak to you straight. When a pack of wolves conspires against the one they thought was weak, they forget the simple truth. A lamb can grow teeth sharp enough to make the hunters bleed. The very group that plotted in shadows, whispering your name like a curse, is now choking on the bad news they never expected. Their whispers have turned into panicked stutters. Their unity has turned into cracks. Their so-called spiritual attack didn't just fail, it collapsed in on them like a house of cards built on rotten foundations. And here's the twist that makes it sting even more. You weren't just the survivor of their schemes. You became the living evidence of their failure. Chosen ones, remember this. It's not enough that they wanted you broken. They wanted you erased. But what they don't realize is that those marked for elevation cannot be erased. They can only be refined. Now, let's get real for a moment. Your enemies probably saw themselves as masterminds of some secret blockbuster. They imagined they were starring in a dark thriller, gathering in secret corners, exchanging coded glances, strategizing your downfall as if you were nothing but a disposable character in their script. But here's where their plot crumbled. You didn't play the victim they wrote for you. You became the twist that tore apart the entire storyline. Their movie ended in embarrassment, not your defeat. And now they sit restless, trying to answer one question that burns in their minds. How did you walk through unscathed? Chosen ones, before we dive deeper, I need you to do something simple yet powerful. If these words are striking a chord within you, show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to this channel. Your engagement fuels the energy behind every message we deliver, helping us keep creating content that inspires, uplifts, and transforms. Every click, every share, every comment is more than interaction. It's a declaration that you stand with a community built on strength, resilience, and unstoppable momentum. So take that moment now, chosen ones, because together we rise higher. The answer, chosen ones, is this. They underestimated the power of being chosen. They mistook your silence for weakness, your patience for naivety, your setbacks for an ending. They didn't understand that every delay in your path was strategy in disguise. They thought you'd panic, lash out, or collapse under pressure. Instead, you moved with a calm so unnerving they couldn't decode it. Nothing terrifies an enemy more than realizing their most vicious strikes didn't even make you flinch. Look at history. Every empire built on deception collapses quicker than the truth it tried to bury. Hysteria consumed the Salem accusers more than the accused. Great powers that weaponized lies were always devoured by those same lies. What your enemies forgot is that attacking someone chosen isn't just a fight, it's self-destruction. When they lifted their hand against you, they weren't just fighting you. They were colliding headfirst with a principle larger than themselves, the principle that truth doesn't bend to schemes. But let me answer the questions you might be asking right now. Why do enemies even waste time on the chosen ones? Why do people invest so much energy plotting against someone who never did them harm? The answer is envy disguised as strategy. They see your light, and it agitates the shadows they live in. They feel your resilience, and it highlights the fragility of their own lives. And so they convince themselves that if they unite in numbers, if they whisper in enough ears, if they lay enough traps, they can shake you. But what they don't realize is that no amount of numbers can outmatch someone who has mastered awareness, clarity, and self-control. Chosen ones, let this be your motivation. Every scheme thrown at you became an unintentional training ground. Every attempt to break you was an unpaid internship in resilience. Their gossip sharpened your focus. Their sabotage forced you to adapt. Their betrayal trained you to watch patterns more carefully. And now they can't comprehend how every attack left you stronger, sharper, and harder to touch. The news that reached them is devastating. They invested their energy in your destruction, only to build the very version of you they feared the most. Think of it this way. They thought they were forging chains, but each chain became a key. They thought they were writing your ending, but each page they scribbled became evidence of their insecurity. They thought secrecy would protect them, but your discernment shattered their shadows like glass. They thought silence would confuse you, but silence only gave you the chance to listen deeper and move wiser. Now, the irony is too much for them to bear. Their alliance, built on bitterness, is crumbling. Their whispers, meant to break you, now expose them. Their fear tactics backfired into your clarity, and the so-called victory they toasted to in secret, it has already soured into regret. What they thought was your ending was nothing more than your prelude. So understand this, chosen ones, the bad news your enemies just received isn't simply that you survived. It's that you have risen to a level where their strategies don't even apply anymore. You've outgrown their tactics. You've evolved past their reach. You've turned their darkest intentions into the very fuel of your ascendancy. And that is the punishment they never prepared for. Not your retaliation, not your collapse, but your unshakable rise. And chosen ones, before we push forward, pause for a moment. This message is more than just words. It's a mirror reflecting your journey. If you feel the sting of betrayal, the shock of envy, or the weight of hidden attacks, then you already know why this video found you today. Show your strength, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a newspaper in the comments to declare that you've outsmarted every attack designed against you. Your support is the reason we can keep delivering content that exposes the schemes of the envious and fuels the rise of the chosen. And now, let's dive in step by step, because what you're about to hear will confirm that the same signs happening in your life are proof that you've already outmaneuvered every enemy. Ordinary people can't carry this kind of victory. Only the chosen can. Let's get started. Number 1. They struck at your surface, but you moved from a depth they couldn't reach. They attacked what they could touch, but missed what makes you untouchable. You struck my surface, but my core was never yours to reach. My dear chosen ones, hear me clearly. Your enemies made the biggest mistake of their lives when they thought they could break you by aiming at what's visible. They went after your reputation, your resources, your relationships, thinking that if they pulled a few strings, you'd unravel like cheap fabric. They believed if they smeared your name enough, isolated you from enough people, or tried to starve you of opportunities, you'd collapse. But what they didn't understand, and what burns them now, is that the essence of who you are was never tied to the things they targeted. They swung hard at the branches, forgetting your roots went deeper than their reach. Chosen ones, let's ask the real question. Why do enemies always underestimate the foundation you stand on? Why do they assume that pulling away the visible pieces of your life will make you crumble? The answer is simple. They can only fight on the level they understand. They measure life in shallow terms, thinking status, money, and appearances are everything. So naturally, they attacked there. But here's where they got it wrong. They aimed at your surface, while the real power of being chosen comes from within. The part of you no human hand can manipulate, no rumor can erase, no scheme can sabotage. Think about it this way. When a storm hits a mountain, the wind may howl, the trees may bend, and the rocks may shift. But does the mountain move? Number. It stands unshaken because its foundation is solid. That's you, chosen ones. They thought they were strong enough to move a mountain, but all they did was exhaust themselves against immovable stone. Their gossip turned into wasted breath. Their plotting became useless labor, and now the bad news has reached them. Their most vicious blows didn't even leave a scar. What devastates them most is the calmness you carried through it all. They expected you to panic. They wanted to see you scrambling, doubting, retaliating, maybe even destroying yourself under the weight of their pressure. Instead, you moved with a quiet composure that terrified them. Nothing unsettles an enemy more than realizing their sharpest weapons didn't even make you flinch. Imagine striking with all your strength, only to watch your target look back with steady eyes, untouched. That image alone is enough to haunt them. And chosen ones, here's where it gets even better. Every attack they launched came with side effects they never anticipated. While they thought they were breaking you down, they were unknowingly training you up. Their betrayal sharpened your awareness. Their lies refined your ability to see truth. Their attempts to isolate you forced you to become stronger in solitude. It's ironic. They wanted to weaken you, but every move became your gym. Every scheme became your practice ground. Every obstacle became your sharpening stone. You came out tougher, wiser, more resilient than you ever were before. Now they're restless, sitting in circles of regret, whispering questions they don't dare ask aloud. How did our attacks backfire? Why is this person stronger now than before? How did we miscalculate so badly? They can't wrap their heads around it because they never realized they were playing the wrong game. They fought with gossip, numbers, and manipulation, but you fought with clarity, focus, and strength they can't even define. They threw their best punches at your flesh, forgetting your real power has never lived in flesh. It lives in your will, your awareness, your ability to rise beyond what they can touch. Let me put it in terms they would hate to hear. They were busy playing checkers while you were already mastering chess. They struck at what they thought mattered, but you were protecting what actually matters. They poured their energy into cutting branches, blind to the fact that your roots were only growing deeper. And now, chosen ones, their frustration is boiling over because every move they made proved itself useless. Here's the punchline that crushes them. They thought you were fighting for survival, but in truth, you were training for mastery. They thought they were cutting off your progress, but they were only chiseling the marble that revealed your strength. And now, what stands before them is not the broken person they expected, but a version of you they can no longer reach, no longer intimidate, and no longer defeat. So, my chosen ones, take this as proof of your power. You didn't just withstand their attacks, you transformed through them. Their failure is your evidence, their shock is your testimony, their bad news is the reality that the very blows they intended to crush you only forged the steel they could never break. That's why they're devastated. That's why they whisper in confusion. That's why their eyes follow you in disbelief. Because they finally realized you are untouchable where it matters most. Number 2, they attacked your history, but collided with a version of you they never met. They fought your shadow, but the real you was already beyond their reach. You came for the person I used to be. Unfortunately for you, that version no longer lives here. My dear chosen ones, listen closely. Your enemy's entire strategy collapsed before it even started. And here's why. They came armed with blueprints of your past, not the reality of your present. They remembered you from yesterday, the unguarded one, the insecure one, the one who trusted too easily. They built their attack around an outdated version of you, thinking the same tricks would work again. But their biggest shock and their deepest humiliation is realizing the person they targeted doesn't even exist anymore. This is where the bad news hits them hardest. They thought they were hunting you, but they were swinging at a ghost. They assumed you'd still stumble over the same traps, still crack under the same pressure, still break at the same points that once had you down. But chosen ones, every trial, every loss, every betrayal reshaped you. You're not walking into this fight as who you were. You're walking in as who you've become. And who you've become is unrecognizable to their old tactics. Think about it. It's like someone trying to unlock a door with a key that no longer fits. They keep turning it, jamming it, forcing it, growing frustrated, wondering why it won't open. The truth is simple: the lock has changed. That door is sealed to them forever. No matter how many times they twist that old key, no matter how much energy they waste trying, they no longer have access to you. And chosen ones, nothing cuts deeper into an enemy's pride than realizing they don't even have the access they once bragged about. Let me ask you this: how many times have people tried to remind you of your past mistakes, as if those errors are still chains on your ankles? How often have they whispered about who you were, believing that story still defines you? That's their weakness, not yours. Because while they're busy dragging around the ghost of your old self, you've already leveled up to a stage they can't even imagine. They're locked in yesterday's battle, while you're already conquering tomorrow's terrain. That's the nightmare haunting them now. They keep striking at thin air, confused, disoriented, asking themselves, why didn't this work? Why isn't this breaking them? Instead of realizing you've transformed, they start blaming each other. Their unity collapses under the weight of their failure because their strategies weren't designed for the evolved version of you. And chosen ones, that's the beauty of transformation. It makes old weapons useless. Remember this: transformation is the greatest defense. They calculated your weakness, but never factored in your healing. They bet on your fears, but never counted on your courage. They leaned on your silence, but never imagined your wisdom. They banked on yesterday's version of you while you were quietly becoming someone beyond their reach. The irony is sharp. They thought they knew you like a book, but the chapters they memorized are no longer relevant. You've turned the page, written a new story, and closed the door on the old plotline. They're left fighting a shadow while the real you is already playing on an entirely new level. Chosen ones, let this sink in deeply. You didn't just survive, you became unrecognizable to the very traps that once caught you. You're not on their chessboard anymore, while they're still pushing pawns on yesterday's checkers game. You've already mastered chess in a new arena. They don't even understand the rules of the game you're playing now, and that's why they're scrambling, frustrated, and broken. The bad news for them is devastating. The enemy they thought they were fighting no longer exists. The person they plotted against is gone, replaced by a stronger, wiser, sharper version that they cannot outsmart. Their schemes were aimed at who you were, but who you are now is untouchable. And chosen ones, nothing stings a hater more than realizing they wasted their time fighting a shadow. So take this as your motivation. Every time they underestimated you, every time they whispered about your past, every time they thought their old tactics would work, they were only proving how blind they've become to your growth. Let their frustration fuel your fire. Let their confusion be your confirmation. You've outgrown them, outmaneuvered them, and outlived every attack designed for a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. And that, chosen ones, is the ultimate victory. Number 3. Every chain they tried to lock on you became the key to your hidden strengths. Every chain they forged became the key to your hidden power. The more you tried to cage me, the more I discovered the wings you didn't know I had. My dear chosen ones, let me remind you of something enemies never seem to learn. When they press down on you, they don't break you. They reveal you. Every attempt they made to bind you, to corner you, to suffocate your progress became the very spark that unlocked abilities you didn't even realize were sitting inside you. That's the kind of twist that keeps them awake at night. They thought they were clever, setting up traps to cage you, but instead of capturing your spirit, they accidentally introduced you to your power. Think about it. When was the last time growth came from comfort? Never. It's always pressure, resistance, and struggle that forces the hidden layers of strength to rise to the surface. Diamonds are nothing but carbon until pressure makes them shine. Steel is nothing but ore until fire refines it. And you, chosen ones, are nothing less than proof of that same law. They thought they were throwing you into a prison, but it was actually a training ground. Every wall they built around you became another surface for you to push against, building muscles they never imagined you had. Let's be honest, they expected to see confusion on your face. They expected weakness to seep into your steps. They wanted despair to drip from your voice. Instead, what they saw was clarity in your eyes, resilience in your posture, and momentum in your silence. That's the paradox of being chosen. Attacks don't weaken you, they awaken you. And the cruelest irony for your enemies is this: their schemes became your schooling, their betrayals became your blueprints, their malice became your momentum. They thought they were architects of your downfall, but they turned out to be the unpaid builders of your transformation. Chosen ones, I want you to pause and ask yourself, would you have discovered your hidden gifts if they hadn't tried so hard to bind you? Would your eyes be this sharp, your mind this focused, your strength this steady if you had never faced the resistance? The truth is, without their pressure, you may never have dug this deep. You may never have unlocked the brilliance that now makes you untouchable. And that, my chosen ones, is the part that infuriates them most. They set out to weaken you, but all they did was force you into your evolution. Picture this: they tried to bind you with fear, but fear cracked open courage. They tried to bury you under confusion, but confusion carved out clarity. They tried to cover you in shame, but shame revealed self-respect. Every weapon they used turned into a tool you now carry with ease. Every attempt to box you in became another key in your pocket. And now, when they look at you, they don't just see someone who survived. They see someone equipped with strengths they can't even compete with. This is why their circles are restless. This is why whispers follow your name. Because the very attack they invested so much energy into has become the evidence of their failure. They see it in your eyes. You're not the same person they tried to target. You're sharper, stronger, harder to access. What they built for your destruction ended up becoming your workshop. And now you stand in front of them not just untouched, but upgraded. Imagine how bitter that realization must taste for them. They wanted to see you powerless, yet they're the reason you discovered just how powerful you are. They tried to play the role of captors, but in the end, they only freed the version of you that was always waiting to rise. Their victory turned into their punishment, because every ounce of energy they poured into caging you has now been recycled into your rise. Chosen ones, let this sink in. The attacks weren't accidents, they were tools. The pressure wasn't the end, it was the revelation. Every setback, every betrayal, every whisper wasn't proof of your weakness, it was proof of your capacity. They just didn't know it yet. And now, the bad news spreading through their ranks is this: not only did you survive, you walked out with gifts they never intended you to have. You became harder to touch, harder to read, harder to break. Their schemes became your sharpening stone. Their malice became your mirror. Their attempt to bury you turned into the soil from which you grew. And the very chains they tried to fasten on you, those chains became your keys. So yes, chosen ones, let your enemies stew in disbelief. Let them choke on the irony. Because their attempt to limit you was the one thing that unlocked the limitless inside you. And that is the news they can't swallow, the headline they never wanted to read. They built your prison, but you built your empire inside it. Number 4, your very survival became the mirror that exposed their failure. Your survival became the loudest evidence of their defeat. You prayed for my downfall, yet every breath I take is your reminder that you failed. My dear chosen ones, let this sink in. Your enemies never thought survival itself could be a weapon. They believed their strategies would erase you completely, silence your voice, dismantle your progress, scatter your influence until you faded like smoke. They counted on you bending, breaking, or even disappearing under the weight of their schemes. What they never prepared for was this exact moment, when the mere fact that you're still here, standing, thriving, is the most devastating evidence of their collapse. Think about it. Every whisper, every lie, every attempt they made was an investment in your disappearance. They were sure your presence would be wiped out, your name forgotten, your legacy smudged beyond recognition. Yet here you are, chosen ones, walking calmly in the very space they tried to block, building where they tried to demolish, rising where they tried to bury, and now the headlines they're forced to read in their own minds are humiliating. The one we tried to erase has become the proof that we never had any power at all. Enemies always assume destruction is easy. They forget that survival is its own revolution. What they meant for a finale has turned into your encore. What they believed would be your silence has become your spotlight. And the irony is bitter. Every breath you take, every achievement you make, every single day you wake up unbroken, you are handing them their own bad news. Chosen ones, let me ask you this. Have you noticed how even your smallest victories feel like explosions to your enemies? That's because their schemes were designed to make you collapse permanently. So when you accomplish the simplest things, smiling, creating, moving forward, they feel insulted. To them, your very existence is rebellion. They didn't just want to bruise you, they wanted you erased. And when erasure fails, it turns into exposure. They've now exposed their own weakness, because survival has stripped away the illusion of their power. They thought their weapons looked sharp, but in reality, they were hollow. Smoke and mirrors disguised as daggers. Lies can slice reputations, but they can't cut truth. Manipulations can twist perception, but they can't twist outcomes. Intimidation can cause fear, but it can't stop a chosen one's rise. Their tools were illusions designed to scare you into silence, not to actually succeed. And yet, here you are, untouched in ways they can't calculate, thriving in ways they can't decode. Picture this. They imagined you crawling, barely able to hold on. Instead, you walk with a calm authority that unsettles them more than any fight could. You don't even need to retaliate. Your survival alone has become retaliation. Your steady rise has become revenge without you lifting a single finger. And this, chosen ones, is what stings the most. Your life has become louder than their lies. Their expectation was simple. They thought pressure would crush you. But what they didn't factor in is that pressure doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it creates diamonds. They thought setbacks would be permanent. But setbacks became your preparation. They thought isolation would break you. But solitude became your power source. They thought silence meant defeat. But silence became your strategy. Every angle they worked from has collapsed on itself. And now their greatest frustration is realizing that survival itself has rewritten the script. So what's the lesson here, chosen ones? Survival isn't passive. It's not just hanging on by a thread. Survival is an act of defiance. It's the daily proof that their energy, their obsession, their attacks were wasted. You don't have to clap back. You don't have to expose them. You don't have to retaliate. The fact that you are breathing, creating, walking forward with your head high, that is the echo of their defeat. Enemies crave dramatic victories. They want you broken in ways people can see. They want evidence they can point to, evidence of your downfall. But instead, the only evidence that exists is yours. Your continued presence, your continued growth, your continued rise. And it burns them because every day you live, every time you thrive, every moment you succeed, you're proving what they never wanted to admit. Their weapons were powerless, their strategies were weak, and their attacks had no foundation. Chosen ones, let your survival motivate you. Understand that your mere existence is a declaration of strength. You didn't just survive. You turned survival into a mirror that forces your enemies to face themselves. And that mirror is cruel because it shows them the truth. Their power was an illusion. Their alliance was fragile, and their schemes were failures dressed as strategies. So when you walk forward from here, walk with the knowledge that your presence alone is retaliation, your calm is confrontation, and your survival is the evidence of their ultimate defeat. Number 5. They wanted a fistfight, but you shifted the battlefield above their reach. They wanted a street fight, but you took it to the sky. You can't wrestle with someone who refuses to step into the mud. You only end up dirtying yourself. Chosen ones, let's make this crystal clear. Your enemies had one script in mind, and one script only. They wanted a dirty, visible fight. They wanted to drag you into the arena of pettiness, gossip for gossip, lie for lie, trap for trap. They dreamed of a back-and-forth battle where they could measure your moves, pretend they were equal to you, and walk away claiming some kind of twisted victory. They wanted the drama of chaos, because that's the only stage they know how to perform on. But here's the devastating truth for them. You never showed up to their circus. You never picked up the gloves they tried to shove into your hands. You didn't swing wild punches just to prove a point. Instead, you changed the rules of the game. You elevated. You rose above the frequency they were trapped in. And because of that, everything they plotted turned into smoke. Every trap they set collapsed under its own weight. They expected to fight a rival. What they faced was a ghost, untouchable, unreachable, operating on higher ground where their weapons turned useless. Now ask yourself, chosen ones, why do enemies crave confrontation? Why do they itch for you to answer them directly, to meet them on their level? The answer is simple: visibility. They know if they can pull you into open conflict, they get the satisfaction of attention. They want the world to see you wrestling in the dirt with them so they can pretend they matter. They think if they can provoke a reaction, they've won. But when you deny them that, when you refuse to descend into their chaos, you starve them of the only fuel they know: drama. And starving an enemy of attention is the sharpest blow you can ever deliver. My chosen ones, understand the brilliance of fighting from higher ground. You didn't waste your energy defending lies with more words. You didn't match their gossip with counter-gossip. You didn't scramble to expose them because exposure was never your responsibility. Instead, you kept your focus on what matters: progress, clarity, and steady forward motion. While they threw stones in the valley, you were already scaling the mountain. From their view below, you looked calm, untouchable, almost unreal, and that image alone was enough to drive them into madness. Think of it like this: they were shadowboxing, swinging fists at air, imagining they were landing blows, but the reality was you were above, watching them tire themselves out with their own rage. Every rumor they spread circled back and bit them. Every scheme they designed tangled their own hands. Every attempt to pull you down only sunk them deeper into the mud. That's the danger of fighting on the ground while your opponent has already taken to the sky. Their aggression became their own undoing. Chosen ones, nothing stings more than being ignored by the very person you hoped to destroy. Your enemies were waiting for you to break character, to lash out, to step into their chaos. They watched, expecting fireworks, but instead of confrontation, they were met with your silence, your calmness, your unstoppable momentum. That silence was not weakness, it was dominance. It was proof you had already won a battle they didn't even understand, because the real fight was never about trading blows. The real fight was about maintaining your energy, your focus, your elevation, and on that front, you crushed them. They thought your survival would mean scars. They thought you'd crawl out battered and bitter. Instead, you came out cleaner, stronger, untouchable. And that, chosen ones, is why your very progress feels like an insult to them. Your calm ascendancy, your ability to move without being dragged down, has become the evidence of their failure. They wanted to measure your power in a fight, but your refusal to fight stripped them of every ounce of relevance. Here's the irony that eats them alive. By trying to pull you down, they only revealed their own weakness, their desperation, their paranoia, their obsession. It's all on display now. Meanwhile, your restraint became your crown. You didn't need to shout. You didn't need to clap back. You didn't need to expose them. Your elevation exposed them for you. So remember this, chosen ones, not every attack deserves your reaction. Sometimes the most devastating move is no move at all. Sometimes the sharpest strike is silence. Sometimes the greatest power is to let your results, your calmness, your progress be the answer. And right now, your enemies are learning the hard way that by refusing to fight on their level, you made them irrelevant. Their bad news is this: the fight they wanted never happened. The chaos they craved never arrived. The script they wrote for you was never performed. You fought on higher ground, and in doing so, you didn't just win, you made them realize they were never contenders in the first place. Number 6. Their alliance was a fragile pact built on envy, doomed to implode. Their alliance was a chain of weak links, waiting to snap. A pack built on envy will always turn on itself before it ever reaches its prey. My dear chosen ones, let's expose one of the greatest illusions your enemies ever believed, that their numbers gave them power. They thought if they gathered in groups, whispered in circles, and combined their bitterness, they could form an unbreakable front against you. They looked at their unity as strength, parading it like armor, convinced that by coming together they could overwhelm you. But the truth is devastating to them. The very thing they thought was their advantage became their downfall. Their so-called unity wasn't strength at all. It was weakness in disguise. Ask yourself this, chosen ones. What happens when people unite not for purpose, not for vision, not for truth, but for destruction? What happens when their only bond is the shared desire to see you fall? That kind of alliance has no foundation. It's like building a house on sand, one shift, one wave, and the whole structure collapses. They thought envy was enough to hold them together, but envy is a poison that never binds. It corrodes. Think about it. Each person in their little circle didn't truly trust the others. They didn't admire or respect each other. No, they were united by comparison, by insecurity, by the need to one-up the next. They weren't feeding each other's strength. They were feeding each other's weaknesses. Every time one of them whispered venom, the other drank it in, not realizing they were also poisoning themselves. And soon, that poison began to spread through the group. The cracks always start small. A disagreement here, a suspicion there, a moment of doubt when someone wondered if another was secretly holding back information. But envy multiplies like wildfire. In their circle, it grew until suspicion replaced strategy, competition replaced cooperation, and paranoia replaced confidence. What they thought was an army was nothing more than a circus of fear and mistrust. And while they were busy trying to maintain their fragile facade of control, you, chosen ones, stood apart, untouched by their chaos. You didn't need numbers to stand tall. You didn't need alliances of bitterness to move forward. You had clarity, focus, and independence. While they scrambled to keep their collapsing circle together, you were already miles ahead, moving steadily in your lane. Here's the irony that cuts them the deepest. The more they tried to synchronize against you, the more obvious their flaws became. They planned meetings, plotted strategies, and whispered in secret, but their energy was misaligned from the very beginning. Unity built on spite is nothing but a mirage. It looks powerful from a distance but vanishes the moment pressure arrives. That's exactly what happened. The first test of loyalty fractured them. The first real pressure exposed their instability, and the first sign of failure sent them turning against each other instead of standing together. Chosen ones, this is why their so-called strength has become their biggest embarrassment. Imagine gathering a whole team, convincing yourself that together you're unstoppable, only to watch that same team collapse like dominoes the moment the plan doesn't go as expected. That's what's happening to them now. Their numbers became blind spots, their unity became dependency, their circle became a trap they built for themselves. And here's the part that devastates them the most. You didn't even have to lift a finger. Their downfall wasn't caused by your retaliation. It was caused by the rotting foundation they built themselves upon. While they were too busy comparing, competing, and second-guessing each other, you were building quietly, calmly, with stability they couldn't touch. Ask yourself, chosen ones, how could they ever win against you if they couldn't even stand together without crumbling? They believed quantity could outmatch quality. They believed noise could outmatch clarity. They believed envy could outmatch discipline. But numbers don't guarantee victory. Alignment does. And they had none. Now the bad news has reached them, spreading like wildfire through their collapsing circle. They thought they had formed an unstoppable force, but the truth is undeniable. Their unity was their undoing. They created a chain of weak links, and every tug, every pressure, every challenge snapped those links one by one. Their alliance was nothing more than a glass shield, shattering under its own weight. And you, chosen ones, remain untangled from their collapse. Their weakness has only highlighted your strength. Their dependence on each other has only emphasized your independence. Their chaos has only made your composure shine brighter. They wanted their alliance to intimidate you, but all it did was expose them. Remember this: groups built on malice will always implode. Circles built on envy will always turn inward. Alliances built on bitterness will always crumble. That is why, despite their numbers, they are now powerless. And that is why you, standing alone, still rise above them all. Number 7. They weaponized fear, but you transformed it into sharp vision and clarity. They tried to chain you with fear, but you turned it into your weapon of vision. The fear you aimed at me didn't cage me. It lit the path you wanted to keep hidden. My dear chosen ones, listen closely. Fear was their biggest gamble. They believed that if they could flood your world with shadows, whisper doubts in your mind, and throw enough threats your way, you'd freeze. They counted on fear the way gamblers count on their last card, convinced it would paralyze you into submission. They thought that intimidation would be the shortcut to your downfall, that confusion would trip you up, and that silence would keep you locked in place. To them, fear was the weapon, the hammer, the chain. But what they failed to realize is this: chosen ones don't break under fear, we sharpen. Think about the irony here. They whispered lies, they spread rumors, they staged scenes meant to scare you into retreat. But instead of shrinking, you leaned in closer. Instead of trembling, you observed. Every attempt they made to rattle your spirit became an accidental revelation. Their own patterns gave them away. Their own strategies became visible under the pressure they created. The very thing they thought would blind you became the spotlight that exposed them. That's why their circle is in disbelief right now. They expected you to stumble, but you used their shadows as a map. Chosen ones, ask yourself this: what happens when someone tries to scare you in the dark, but forgets you've already adjusted your eyes to see clearly? Their games lose power. Their threats sound hollow. Their intimidation becomes comedy instead of tragedy. That's exactly what happened here. They leaned on fear as their strongest weapon, but in your hands, fear flipped into insight. Instead of caging you, it taught you. Instead of stopping you, it trained you. They thought they were keeping you from moving forward, but all they really did was show you where every trap was placed. This is what devastates them the most. Fear didn't silence you. It educated you. You learned to move with more precision. You became more aware, more vigilant, more strategic. They thought they were overwhelming you with chaos, but all they did was sharpen your clarity. Imagine their frustration. Imagine setting up a chessboard, thinking you've outsmarted your opponent, only to realize every move you made gave away your entire strategy. That's what they're living in now, regret and confusion. And chosen ones, let's not forget, fear was never meant to be your enemy. Fear, when faced with awareness, becomes one of the greatest teachers. It reveals who's hiding behind masks, who's pulling strings, who's plotting in the corners. Fear exposes cracks in false confidence. It shows you where the weak spots are. Your enemies didn't count on you knowing that. They thought fear would make you small, but it made you dangerous in ways they never imagined. Now look at the situation from their side. They invested energy in creating dread, only to watch you walk taller. They poured effort into schemes of intimidation, only to see your composure remain unshaken. They wanted you sleepless, anxious, second-guessing yourself. Instead, you became more certain, more stable, more decisive. Every threat they whispered became another proof of their weakness. Every attempt at intimidation became another reminder that you were untouchable where it matters most. And here's the news they hate the most. Their fear campaign backfired. The weapon they believed would break you became the evidence of their collapse. Chosen ones, you turned their shadows into blueprints. You turned their silence into signals. You turned their pressure into preparation. You didn't just survive their fear, you elevated because of it. So now, the tables have turned. While they remain trapped in paranoia, double-checking their alliances and choking on their own tactics, you've already moved forward. While they're still in the fog they created, you're navigating with clear skies. They are haunted by their own shadows, but you've walked out with clarity, direction, and strength. Their fear was supposed to corner you, but instead it became your compass. And let me tell you, chosen ones, nothing cuts an enemy deeper than realizing their most powerful weapon became their greatest mistake. They thought fear would cage you. Instead, fear revealed them. They thought fear would silence you. Instead, fear sharpened your voice. They thought fear would control you. Instead, fear confirmed your freedom. And now they sit with the bad news echoing in their ears. Their strongest move was powerless against you. Number 8. They drafted your ending, not realizing you were holding the pen all along. They tried to write your ending, not realizing you hold the pen. You don't get to write me out of my own story. I own the ink, I own the page, I own the ending. Chosen ones, let me tell you something your enemies hate to admit. They never wanted you to tell your own story. They wanted to grab the pen, scribble lies, and hand the world a cheap version of you that matched their envy. Every rumor they spread, every whisper they planted, every false accusation they manufactured was meant to shrink you down into a role you never agreed to play. In their script, you were supposed to be broken, small, defeated. They worked tirelessly to paint that picture, hoping people would believe it. But here's where the bad news hit them hard. Their story didn't stick because you were never a character in their little play. You've always been the author of your own life, and you write in ink they can't erase. Think about it, chosen ones. Why do enemies obsess so much with controlling your narrative? Why do they twist facts and fabricate illusions to make you appear weaker than you are? It's because they know that perception can shape power, and they were desperate to strip you of yours. They thought if they could convince others that you were fragile, the world would treat you as fragile. If they could convince others you were finished, then opportunities, connections, and support would vanish. But they underestimated the power of authenticity. Lies are loud but fragile. Truth is quiet but undeniable. And when lies collide with truth, lies always collapse under their own weight. Their whispers turned into static, while your reality stood as living proof. They tried to tell people who you were, but your actions told a different story. They wanted the world to see you as broken, but your resilience made you stronger. They wanted you erased, but your presence became louder, and now they sit frustrated because no matter how many pages of fiction they wrote, the plotline of your life keeps exposing their deception. Their narrative was nothing but bad fan fiction, while your real story is a bestseller they can't plagiarize. Imagine this. They thought they were playwrights directing a stage drama with you as the puppet. They pulled strings, they spread rumors, they created scenes. But while they were lost in their fantasy, you stepped off their stage entirely. You didn't perform their lines, you didn't stay in their scene, you walked into a different arena altogether. An arena where their control has no power. That's the kind of shock that leaves enemies broken. They thought they held your ending, but all they held was wasted paper. Chosen ones, here's the part that stings them the most. Every time they tried to box you into their version of the story, you didn't resist. You simply outgrew the box. You moved in ways they couldn't anticipate, exposing their lies without even trying. Their schemes highlighted their own bitterness more than they ever tarnished your name. What they believed would diminish you only revealed their obsession. And now the whole world can see it. Their efforts revealed them, not you. Ask yourself this. How many times did they try to control the narrative, only for your life to completely contradict them? They said you were finished, yet here you are rising. They said you were weak, yet here you are stronger. They said you were broken, yet here you are whole. Each false story they crafted became another page that embarrassed them because your reality turned out to be the exact opposite. That's the power of being chosen. Your truth cannot be overwritten by their lies. And now their frustration is unbearable, because what can they do when the very thing they tried to control has slipped completely out of their hands? They wanted to dictate your destiny, but destiny was never theirs to direct. They wanted to silence your voice, but your presence is louder than their noise. They wanted to decide your ending, but you're still here writing new chapters while their story looks flimsy, outdated, and irrelevant. Chosen ones, this is the lesson your enemies never learned. Power belongs to the one holding the pen, not to the one screaming from the sidelines. They screamed lies, but you kept writing truth. They tried to script your fall, but you kept scripting your rise. And now, every page of your story is evidence that they wasted their time. So carry this truth with you. The next time they try to define you, remember that their words are just graffiti on the outside walls, while you're inside constructing skyscrapers. Their fiction fades, but your reality builds. Their whispers crumble, but your chapters endure. They can try to hijack the narrative, but they'll always fail. Because the ink was never theirs. The pen was always in your hand. And that, chosen ones, is the bad news your enemies can't swallow. You're not just the survivor of their script, you're the author of your own masterpiece. Number 9. Their secret moves collapsed under the spotlight of your awareness. Their shadows collapsed under the eyes that saw too much. Secrets rot faster when the wrong eyes are watching. My chosen ones, let's address the game your enemies thought they were playing. They believed silence was their weapon, secrecy was their shield, and shadows were their safe zone. They whispered behind doors, scribbled plans in corners, exchanged sly glances, and smiled with masks hiding venom. They convinced themselves that if they kept their schemes quiet enough, you'd stumble in confusion, blind to what was moving against you. To them, secrecy was power, but to you, it was their greatest weakness. They underestimated your gift of discernment, the radar they can't block, the lens that sees through smoke, the instinct that doesn't need proof to confirm what's real. You weren't wandering in the dark as they hoped. You were watching with clarity, sharper than a blade. While they trusted shadows to cloak their intentions, your awareness pierced straight through, exposing every move before it was made. What they thought was hidden became obvious. What they thought was invisible, you already anticipated. Chosen ones, you know this truth. Secrecy doesn't scare you. it informs you. Every whisper you didn't hear directly became confirmation that something was moving. Every odd silence around your name was an announcement louder than words. While they imagined you scrambling to catch up, you were already 10 steps ahead. And this is what drives them mad. They thought secrecy gave them control, but what it really gave them was exposure. Because discernment doesn't need a spotlight, it thrives in shadows. Let's break it down with an image they'd hate. Imagine someone covering a broken wall with a curtain, believing no one will notice. To them, the cover-up feels clever, but to a trained eye, the curtain itself is the giveaway. That's exactly how their secrecy betrayed them. The harder they tried to hide, the more obvious their cracks became. Every closed-door meeting was suspicious. Every over-rehearsed explanation was a red flag. Every silence around you was a confession in itself. They didn't realize that their cover-up was the evidence. And here's the part that hits them hardest. You didn't even have to fight them directly. You simply observed, connected patterns, and moved with precision. While they scrambled to adjust stories, cover tracks, and twist narratives, you already knew the destination of their schemes. They can't figure out how you stay ahead without being in the room. They can't grasp how you anticipate conversations you were never part of. They can't explain why the traps they set collapse before you even arrive. And so, they whisper among themselves. Who's informing them? How do they know? Why does every plan keep slipping through our fingers? The answer is simple. Discernment makes secrecy powerless. They thought silence was protection, but silence only made their motives louder. They thought shadows would hide them, but shadows only highlighted their shape. They thought secrecy gave them the upper hand, but in truth, it left them frantic, paranoid, and constantly exposed. They believed you'd walk blindly into snares. Instead, you stepped over every trap with calm precision, leaving them exhausted by their own efforts. Chosen ones, this is the gift they can't stand. While they are tangled in paranoia, afraid of being found out, you walk with a calm that unsettles them more than any confrontation could. Nothing terrifies a schemer more than the realization that their secrets aren't secret anymore. They wanted to control perception, but every attempt to conceal revealed more about their desperation. They wanted you confused, but all they managed was to expose their own patterns. Here's the irony they'll never recover from. Every hidden plot they made became a signal of who they truly are. Their secrecy wasn't strength. It was a spotlight on their weakness. Their fear of being exposed was the very proof that they were already exposed. And now they're restless, disoriented, whispering among themselves, while you stand steady, untouchable, and informed. So, my dear chosen ones, take this in. What they meant as their sharpest weapon was nothing but smoke. They relied on silence, but silence spoke louder than words. They leaned on shadows, but shadows betrayed them. They trusted secrecy, but secrecy only magnified your awareness. That is why they are devastated today. Because the bad news they received is not just that you saw through them, it's that you always will. And nothing destroys a schemer faster than knowing their secrets can't survive the eyes of the chosen. And so, chosen ones, this is where the story comes full circle. Every scheme they crafted, every shadow they trusted, every whisper they spread has collapsed under the weight of your resilience. The bad news your enemies received is simple. You were never their victim. You were always their lesson. And now it's your turn to rise louder, stronger, untouchable. If this message struck you, show your power. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop the number 77 in the comments to declare your breakthrough. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because chosen ones move together.